Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
It is time to talk about the books that make you. Now let me ask you a question. Are you gripped by fear? Can you recall a time that left you feeling frightened, alone? Maybe it was because of a major change in your life, like the loss of a loved one or a sickness. Maybe it was a world event like 9/11 or a natural disaster. Maybe it's even something that you're feeling right now. Our guest today is author A.G. Billig, and she found herself gripped with fear, and she noticed many others were as well. Now, instead of succumbing to that fear, she chose love, and that has made all the difference. Her book is called I Choose Love, and it is a remarkable journey that is more than a relationship book. If you are ready to truly read something that is powerful and transformational, then this is a book that you can't pass by. I Choose Love, A Journey from Fear to Love, is an awakening for your heart. It's reaffirming your direction in life and a guide for choosing love every day. Now, A.G. is not only an author, but she's a journalist as well, and she's also done radio. She's a certified trainer and a Reiki practitioner. As well, she's skilled in self-publishing, and she's very knowledgeable about the literary world. She is someone who interweaves real stories with ancient wisdom, and that's what I love about her. Now, the ideas presented in I Choose Love, A Journey from Fear to Love, are the result of her encounters with spiritual teachers and healers, and many people that have helped inspire her life. And I'm going to bring her on right now so that she can tell us more about who's inspired her, her book, and why everyone should choose love. A.G., welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, Desiree, it's so good to be here with you today and with your listeners. And, I was listening to your fabulous introduction. And can I borrow it? Can I borrow some of it for my presentation? It's actually pretty awesome.
My pleasure. Sure. Well, yeah. It's recorded now, so you can have it, definitely.
Yeah. Or can I cite you? That was just awesome. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
For this warm welcome.
Thank you for joining us here today on My Star 95, Music for the Soul. And right now, I love the fact that we're talking about books for the soul. And your book is such a perfect topic for us. And one of the things that really inspires me about it is the story behind it. And I know you've told it to me before, so if you don't mind sharing with the audience why you chose to write this book. What was the experience that happened to you while you were traveling after 9/11 that really was the catalyst for you writing this book and deciding to share your journey in choosing love?
Well, there were a couple of things that happened. I think at some point, and that was at the end of October 2015. That's when I experienced the dark night of my soul. I think each one of us goes through that at some point of our life. And actually, some friends of mine and some people I knew, they were in a fire in a nightclub in Bucharest. Mm-hmm. That's actually the city where I was born. And they were young, they were gifted, they were beautiful. Many of them were artists, musicians, photographers, and 64 of them, they just died.
Oh my goodness!
And I remember, that incident was all over the news, all over the world, and because it was so unexpected, and because also the media they kind of like to they feed on this event, unfortunately. But to me, that was life-changing because I thought myself as being a brave person, And I realized that actually that wasn't entirely true. I wasn't completely honest to myself. There was a lot of fear within me, and actually it wasn't the fear of death, because I don't see that as the end, but just as a transition. It was actually the fear of dying with, my song unsung. Actually, so living my life in my comfort zone, while actually my heart pushed me to do something different, to be somewhere else than where I was at that moment. And then I traveled for the first time to Southern California, and I was scared all the time. I was there by myself. I went to a conference in Santa Ana, and something wasn't right. And then when I returned to Bucharest, I heard about the terror attacks in Paris, and maybe you remember those people were killed there too.
Yes.
And then this idea to write a book about fear just came to me, because I'm a fiction writer. I never considered before that the idea of writing a nonfiction book, because I thought, there are all these spiritual teachers, masters, people who are known around the world, who basically already wrote everything that needs to be written. So I thought, who am I to do that? But my heart said, no, you should do that, because maybe there are people out there in the world who right now they need this book and who will resonate with your story and with your writing style. And so I started writing it, and it took me only 1 month to complete it.
Wow.
And,
that's fast. That's really fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It just poured out of you. It sounds like it just,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of like a download, and I think to me writing nonfiction is much more easier than writing fiction. I had a very clear structure from the very beginning, and I thought, okay, the book should have 2 parts. So part 1, it was meant to put life in a different perspective, because you cannot expect somebody to want to transform if they don't transform their vision about life, or if they are not exposed to a different way to see life and things. And so that's the first part, and then that's why the name is laying the foundation. And then the second part is doing the work. So actually I give people practical tools that can help them transmute fear into love, because basically our choices in life are guided by fear or love, and fear in different degrees. I can say that even jealousy is a form of fear.
Sure. Of course. Yes.
Yes. So and they cannot coexist. So we either live in fear or we either live in love, and that's why we need to make this choice if we want to have that life we dream about. And after we make this choice, then we remember that we are love, because love is our essence. That's the idea. So it's not actually a choice. Love is who we are. But first we need to get into that space where we can remember that we are love, and we can do that by acting and talking and thinking loving thoughts every day until they become our way of being.
I love that fundamental message that you have. The fact that fear in all of its different forms is what really can pull us back, and it can pull us down.
Yes.
And when you were talking about the first section of your book, the perceptions that people have and the reasons why they feel fear, I'm not saying that fear and feeling it isn't legitimate, but at the same time, when you have influences coming at you that is encouraging you to feel fear, it seems to me, and what you're saying is recognizing that helps you transcend that and move beyond it, because there's always going to be things there to fear. And by nature, it's like, it's like animals. Animals feel fear to protect themselves. That's how they know to run from a predator. We as humans, we have that same instinct that when fear strikes us, we need to react and we need to do something about it. But I love the message that you have where you're saying instead of letting that fear drive you, let love drive you.
Yes, that's precisely the idea. And of course, fear can be good. As in the example you cited before, fear can keep us alive sometimes when it manifests itself like a little voice in our heads telling you shouldn't go on that street where there are no lights because there might be someone in the dark that might attack you. But other than that, there is the fear of rejection, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being good enough, fear of poverty. So all kinds of fears that are actually kind of ingrained in our mind, especially during our childhood. And that kind of fear follows us throughout our life. And if we don't become aware of it, and if we don't go into our heart, into the space of our heart, instead of staying stuck in our mind, then it's going to rule our life. And it's not only going to prevent us from expressing our full potential, but also it's having an impact on health too. And it's already proven scientifically that our emotions impact our body. And fear actually is very constrictive. So when we feel fear, we have that flight or fight response, and our whole body is under pressure. And then no wonder that people they get migraines and their back hurts.
Right.
And
it causes stress, anxiety.
Yes.
It can affect the physical feeling of fear. Causes physical ailments as well as psychological too. I mean, depression and mental disorders, anxiety, all of that can be traced back to that feeling of fear.
Yeah, and also the fear of the unknown. I watched recently a documentary about Osho. The spiritual teacher from India. I had no idea. Actually, he at some time in his life he lived in Oregon. And he built there like a kind of a city, and the people. It was around near a very small town called Antelope. And the people in Antelope, they were really reluctant at their presence there because they represented the unknown. So I think that there were their inner fears that triggered their reluctance to something that they couldn't quite get. They couldn't quite put a finger on.
Right. And let's talk about that a little bit, because it does seem like there's a lot of fear in the world right now. There's fear of others. There's fear of people from other countries. There's fear of people that are going to hurt us. There's fear of what's going on with world politics. It seems like right now the entire world is gripped by fear. What are your thoughts on that? And how can people go beyond the fear that they might be feeling just because of the world stage right now?
I think we tend to believe that the world is gripped by fear because that's what media emphasizes. But on the upper, there are communities, there are places where people live peacefully and live in harmony. So I think the answer is to look first and foremost within us and connect to the peace and the harmony that's already in our heart, in our soul, and then express it into the world. And I think the change, the transformation happens first at an individual level.
Mm-hmm.
And the more and more, because everything in the universe is energy. So when we think fearful thoughts, when we say words that are nice, when we act something a little bit aggressive, all of that's energy that we put into the universe. And the problem is that it doesn't affect the other people. It affects us as well. So by realizing that we are connected and that we are not separated, that I think that's that would be one of the first steps towards the internal transformation.
It's very much like go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. No. And then once we realize that, we can be more, as I said, more cautious to the energy we put out into the world,
right?
As thoughts, words, and actions.
Right.
But the problem is that we tend to be very critical with ourselves, and sometimes to neglect our needs, to neglect our heart, because we need to survive and we need to go to our jobs and we need to please others. So if we can't meet our needs and if we are not honoring ourselves, how can we do it with other people? So honoring ourselves and loving ourselves and treating ourselves lovingly, that's something we need to do before we do it with the people around us.
Right.
That's another step.
And that reminds me very much of Gandhi and the saying of be the change that you want to see in the world. As long, if everybody does that, then we have a better world.
Yes, I think that's the secret. Not waiting for the politicians to make decisions, not waiting for them to change the world. No, just starting at a personal level and seeing how we can improve our life and the lives of the people that are around us, our family, our friends, our community, our neighbors. Helping each other, supporting each other, nurturing each other.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about the indie community, about the self-published community, especially in Southern California. People there, they are so supportive, and they understand that actually we are not competing against each other. We are there are plenty of people who want to read books. So actually, it is through collaboration that we can. That we can achieve success and that we can fulfill our purpose.
Exactly. And all around, not just Southern California, but around the United States, in Florida, where this station is based, in Bucharest, where you are originally from, all over the world. Yeah. So what I'm wondering about, if you don't mind us circling back just a little bit, is when we're talking about fear and, what's inside of us, choosing love for ourselves, but what I see sometimes and what it feels like, people are doing is they project their own fears onto others. And they expect other people to behave in a certain way because that's something that they believe for themselves. And I'm always struck by, why do you care? I guess my question to people who do that is, why do you care about what somebody else chooses to do as long as it doesn't harm you? And I think my line in the sand is, if somebody chooses to, for example, love somebody, marry somebody, chooses to practice a certain religion, chooses a lifestyle or a hobby or an interest, as long as it doesn't impact in a negative way other people, then that should be fine. And I feel like that's the core of what love is that acceptance of others, no matter who they decide to be, again, as long as it's not something that's detrimental. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, because it seems to be similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely it is. That acceptance and tolerance and the compassion, these are all aspects of love, because love, in my opinion, is one of the most misunderstood and misused words in our language. People sometimes they use it lightly, and they use it to actually define attachment, or being used to being with a person, or trying to use a person to fill an inner void. So and they forget that actually love means compassion and acceptance, as you mentioned, and tolerance. And that's something to express towards everything and towards everyone. And don't get me wrong here, I don't say that we need to have more partners at the same time.
Right. It's not necessarily the physical. It's
not, yeah. It's just an attitude. It's like a sun that's inside of us, that's inside our heart. That's just like the sun up in the sky shines its light and warms everybody with its presence. That's the idea. And I think that people they are judgmental towards others when they are actually really judgmental towards themselves. Rather than acknowledging that, they project it onto other people, and maybe they are too afraid to actually spend some time with themselves and find out who they are. So then they are more preoccupied with what other people are doing. And then let's not forget about the ego. That's a construct that we build starting in our childhood. It's like a mask that we put on to protect ourselves, because unfortunately our parents sometimes, the way they treat us, they make us feel that we are not good enough, or that we are not enough, or that we need to behave in a certain way to be accepted. So we build this ego, and we put on a mask, and we incorporate different beliefs. And actually, when somebody is doing something that's not in concordant with our beliefs or with our lifestyle, the ego tends to see that as a threat to its own existence, to its own life. And then people, they tend to be judgmental, like the ego tends to protect itself.
That's a very
so that's another way of seeing it, different way.
Yeah, that's a very astute way of looking at it, and a little bit Freudian. And it is amazing to me. One of the things that I'm always struck by is the fact that very similar concepts, like what we're talking about right now, you can look at it from a psychological point of view. Like when you're talking about the ego and the id, that's very Freudian. You can also talk about it from a spiritual level. You can talk about it from the physical level. But ultimately, no matter which viewpoint you're taking, you're still looking at the same thing. You might describe it differently. You might find different aspects of it that's just a little bit defined differently because of, the discipline you're coming from. But ultimately, and the important thing that people have to remember is it is all the same. And that sameness is where truth, in my opinion, lies.
Yes, that's true. And I want to share a short story about myself, and about being judgmental. I used to, a couple of years ago, when somebody lied to me, I was really, that was that was a deal breaker. I took it personally. So whenever somebody would lie to me, I was really hurt. I mean, why? Why would that person lie to me? Because I'm not telling lies. Well, to be completely honest, totally honest, I would sometimes tell like that kind of a white lie. Like, for example, my mother, she would cook and she would give me some food to take home, and I wouldn't have the time. I would forget about that food and I would just, toss it. And then she asked me, "Did you eat it?" And not to upset her, I would tell her, "Yes, I ate it, but I didn't." So that's that kind of lies. And I talked to my spiritual master, and she said, and I said, "Look, but I don't lie to people." And she said, "Yeah, but how about yourself? Maybe you're lying to yourself." So.
AG, if you want to maybe describe a little bit about the people that have inspired you and what it's like to work with somebody and to have somebody there who you can call a spiritual guide or an advisor.
I love this question, and you know what they say, that whenever the student is ready, the master shows up. And actually, for a while, before I decided that Southern California was going to be my home for, I don't know, shall I say the rest of my life? Hopefully. But I traveled back and forth from Bucharest, Romania, and to the US a couple of times. And in 2009, I went to Miami. It was my first time, and I wasn't yet on a spiritual path back then. And I saw some people dancing salsa, and I said, "Okay, that's great. I love the movement. I love the sound of the music. So when I go back home, then I want to learn how to dance salsa." And actually, dancing, that's something that I've been planning on doing, and that was kind of a dream I had when I was a kid. I wanted to be on stage and sing and dance, and I said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot, at least just for fun, because it's too late to become a professional dancer. And the moment I'm sharing this story, because the moment I decided to follow my heart, because as I said, that was something that I wanted to do for a very long time. So I went to a dancing school, and I was there like a robot, being very self-conscious about my body and my movements. And what are other people? What are the other people going to think about me? And maybe I'm not good enough. All kinds of fear. And this guy just walks in, and he was wearing just like a short pants and a t-shirt and flip-flops, and he started moving, and he was so gracious, and he just went with the music. And when the class was over, I went to him and said, "How do you do it?" And he said, "I just let the music inspire me." And then he looked at me and he said, "Oh, your mother, she's having a heart condition." And I was, "How do you know?" I mean, he was seeing me for the first time, and he was a Reiki master. He said, "If you come and see me, and I'll teach you a couple of things." So another 1 or 2 weeks went by, and then I don't know, something happened to me, and I said, okay, then I need to go and see that guy. And that's how everything started, like in a dance school, So that's all I'm saying. Whenever you're ready, then the master will show up.
The master finds you, exactly.
Yeah, the master finds you, yeah.
You have a website as well, right?
Yeah, like every author who wants to be successful. I have a website that's www.agbillig.com, and actually, if you go there and if you subscribe to my mailing list, you can get updates, and you can also enter a raffle, and you can win 1 copy of my audiobook.
That's fantastic. We love that. A.G. Billig, author of I Choose Love, thank you so much for joining us. We're talking about books for the soul, right? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and please don't forget that you are loved. So spread the love every day.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.